Good day everyone. Our group will present the case of People of the Philippines versus Rufino Omanito. This case is very important in Philippine jurisprudence because it highlights the role of DNA evidence in criminal cases, particularly in ensuring that justice is based on truth and not just on perception. In many criminal cases, especially those involving serious accusations like rape, courts often rely heavily on the testimony of the victim. While this is understandable and important, this case teaches us that human perception is not always perfect. Because of this, the law now recognizes the value of scientific evidence such as DNA profiling. In our discussion, we will go through the material facts of the case, explain how DNA evidence was used, analyze its role under the rule on DNA evidence, and describe how the case moved through the judicial hierarchy, from the regional trial court up to the Supreme Court. We will also discuss whether there were conflicting interpretations regarding the reliability of DNA evidence and its chain of custody.
Now, we'll discuss the material facts of the case People of the Philippines versus Rufino Omanito. This case involved Rufino Omanito, who was accused of committing a serious crime. The prosecution mainly relied on eyewitness identification, where the victim and witnesses pointed to him as the offender. However, during the trial, problems appeared in the testimony. Some statements were inconsistent, and the defense argued that there was a possibility of mistaken identity. Because of these doubts, the main issue became whether the accused was really the person who committed the crime, or if he was strongly identified. The case is important because it shows how identification alone can sometimes be unreliable in criminal cases.
The legal issue of the case.
The central question in this case is whether the guilt of Rufino Omanito was proven beyond reasonable doubt. In criminal laws, this is the highest standard of proof, meaning the evidence must be strong enough to leave no reasonable doubt in the mind of the court. The case also raises an important questions: whether eyewitness testimony alone is enough to convict a person, or whether stronger scientific evidence is needed to confirm the identity. Because of this concern, the reliability of the prosecution evidence becomes the main focus of the case.
So what is the role of the DNA evidence of this case?
DNA profiling is a scientific method used to identify a person based on their unique genetic makeup. In criminal cases, it is very useful because it can link a person to a biological evidence such as blood, hair, or other bodily fluids. In this case, DNA evidence was not fully used, but the Supreme Court mentioned that it could have helped clarify the truth. If properly applied, DNA testing could have confirmed whether the accused was truly involved or not. This shows that DNA is a powerful tool in a modern justice because it provides more reliable proof compared to human memory alone.
Good day. I will discuss the rule on DNA evidence. Under the Philippine rule of DNA evidence, DNA testing is allowed in court as long as it follows paper procedures. This includes correct collections, handling, and preservation of biological samples. DNA evidence can work in two ways. First, it can help convict a guilty person if there is a match between the DNA sample and the accused. Second, it can also prove innocence if the DNA results do not match the accused. In this case, the lack of strong DNA evidence weakened the prosecution case and contribute by reasonable doubt in the mind of the court.
I will discuss the ruling of the Supreme Court. The case eventually reached the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the Philippines. After reviewing all the evidence, the court found that the prosecution failed to prove the guilt of Rufino Umanito beyond reasonable doubt. Because of inconsistencies in witness identification and lack of strong scientific evidence, the court decided to acquit the accused. This means he was released because the evidence was not strong enough to convict him. The Supreme Court emphasized that in criminal cases, any doubt must always be resolved in favor of the accused.
In this case, the case started in Regional Trial Court or RTC, where the accused was initially convicted based on testimonial evidence. After that, the case was elevated to the Court of Appeals, which review decisions of lower courts and check for possible error in law of facts. Finally, the case reacted the Supreme Court, which is the highest authority in the judicial system. The Supreme Court made the final decision and reversed the convictions, resulting in the acquittal of Romino Umanito. This process shows how the Philippine justice system allows multiple levels of review to ensure fairness and accuracy in decisions.
We see differences in how courts evaluate evidence. Lower courts often rely more on eyewitness testimony, while the Supreme Court applies stricter standards, especially when scientific evidence is lacking. Although there was no major issue about DNA chain of custody, in this case, the court emphasized the importance of properly handling evidence. Chain of custody is important because it ensures the evidence is not altered or contaminated before it is presented in court. In conclusion, this case teaches us that justice must be based on reliable and strong evidence. DNA evidence, when properly used, can help convict the guilty and protect the innocent. The Supreme Court's decision highlights the importance of fairness and the principle that it is better to free a guilty person than to convict an innocent one.